doesn't
answer.
answer mine.
Go,
I
go, go.
specifically said this here. I have an argument.
Last
He
chance.
has not
Last chance.
refuted any premise. The premises have been
5,
hit by the threshold of sufficiency
4,
through eidetic
3,
necessity. Every single
2.
premise is either apodictically certain or a form. Okay, the coward leaves. Okay. Yeah, everything's cool.
All right. Perfect. Ashraf, I'll let you go ahead and begin. And everyone make sure to please also share the debate with everybody.
There's going to be
We'll go ahead and get
12-minute
started.
statements. I don't know if we decided if Nyklot or TJump's going to go first.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, yeah, TJump can go first. 12 minutes. Whenever you're ready, TJump.
I thought he wanted an 8-minute one. Does he want me to go first or him to go first?
Mine's going to take like 30 seconds. Doesn't matter.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The topic of the debate is, does consciousness reduce to physical stuff? The answer is that is the only stuff that we know exists. There is no other stuff we have any evidence for that exists whatsoever. So the only rational conclusion is that consciousness reduces to physical stuff. There is an abundance of data in neurology, psychology, cognitive science, philosophy of mind. Every mind-related field all conclude that yes, the mind is physical. There is no other option B. Until you discover a new ontology or have evidence of a new ontology, then the only conclusion is yes, consciousness reduces to the physical. You may go.
Okay, so what I noticed here was not really an argument, just a bunch of assertions without anything backing it up. So for mine, on the other hand, I'm going to have a very strict argument that justifies my position. It's not based on external observation or scientific theorizing. It's grounded in direct reflection. The basic idea is specifically a phenomenological argument that moves by apodictic certainty, eidetic necessity, and a formal a priori structure. So the first premise is consciousness is apodictically certain. And basically what this means is consciousness just gives itself directly, doesn't need an inference. It appears immediately in reflection. So any act of doubting, any questioning already presupposes consciousness. Consciousness is not something you can get behind. It's the condition for anything to show up at all. Thus, consciousness is apodictically certain. It cannot be coherently denied. That's the starting point. So once you start with consciousness, the next premise is going to be that consciousness necessarily has intentionality. So if consciousness is apodictically certain, then consciousness necessarily has intentionality. And this is known through eidetic variation. So when I perceive a tree, the act is directed towards perceiving the tree. When I imagine unicorn, I am, having my active imagination towards this unicorn. When I remember a birthday party, I'm going to have my active consciousness directed towards this birthday party. So when we understand in any act of consciousness, there's always going to be the structure of I think a thought. And so that aboutness or that directedness of thought is what is called intentionality. And so the next one is consciousness transcends spatial extension. And the structure is if consciousness necessarily has intentionality, then consciousness necessarily transcends spatial extension. So the idea is basically this. If I'm going to understand the act of intentionality and the ego cogito cogitatum structure, the act of intentionality itself is not spatially located, extended anywhere. It is the field by which objects that are spatiotemporal appear in. So when I perceive the tree, sure, the tree is spatiotemporal, but the act of perceiving the tree itself is not. That act of perception is not something that is spatially located. Now, if that's the case, consciousness would be irreducible to physical causality, because if consciousness transcends spatial extension, then consciousness necessarily is irreducible to physical causality, because physical causality depends on spatial extension. Collisions, transmissions, and reactions require spatial proximity and measurable relations. Thus, by its nature, consciousness transcends space. So as you can see here, I have 4 just major points. Consciousness is apodictically certain. It necessarily has intentionality. It necessarily transcends spatial extension. Thus, it's necessarily reducible to physical causality. As you can see, what I've posted as well, it is valid. Everything follows a modus ponens type structure. And I have terms defined as well that explains things. So I'm going to structure this debate in, I've actually presented an argument. TJump hasn't. And I'm going to keep looping back to my argument, my premises. So I'm going to ask him, which specific premise do you deny in that? Do you deny consciousness is apodictically certain, the intentional structure of consciousness, that intentionality transcends spatial extension, or it's irreducible to physical causality? So if we could, we can do that. I am done. Go ahead.
Yeah, so 8
All right,
minute
so-
rebuttal, 8 minutes each.
So we can skip all that and just do open conversation. So his main argument, the only thing that was coherent, most of it was just complete gibberish and a waste of time, was that intentionality is not spatio-temporal. It doesn't exist in space or time. If it doesn't exist in space or time, it doesn't exist. Like all neurologists, cognitive scientists, philosophy minds agree intentionality exists in space and time. It's pretty much a fact. We know where it is in the brain. We can shut it on and shut it off with damaging parts of your brain. There's no part of that that is in any way coherent that he thinks that it's not spatio-temporal. It's just kind of a dumb argument. So if that's all he's got, then refuted, game over, your argument is done. But that was the only argument I heard that had any value to it. Next.
Okay, I didn't see any argument in his point. It's just basically a bunch of assertions. So if you're telling me the only thing that exists is physical, do you have an actual argument for that? Because my argument shows that that's not the case. First of all, I'm going to ask you, how do you define, how do you understand physical? So for me, on the other hand, given my phenomenological starting point, I'm going to understand physical, which is that under space, time, and causation. So when my consciousness experiences reality, and it's going to experience things as being spatially extended, having temporal duration, and there's going to be causal properties. So this is a conceptual schema that I operate under to understand what's physical. So could you please tell me how you understand physical? Give me a strict conceptual analysis as I've done as well. So what is physical to you?
Matter and energy.
Okay, so is matter spatially extended?
Yep.
Okay, is energy spatially extended as well?
Most of it.
Okay, so this being the case, if you look at my argument, the whole idea is consciousness has intentionality to it. The intentional structure transcends spatial extension. You haven't actually dealt with that. Could you please deal with my
I
point as far as
literally
the
did.
intentional stru-
That was literally the one thing I did address, and it doesn't seem like you are intellectually capable of understanding words very well, so I'll say it again.
Okay, do you understand what intentionality
Your
is?
only argument was that intentionality is not spatio-temporal. That was the very beginning of my rebuttal. And then I said, there is no evidence of this. This is something you've made up. You've pulled it out of your ass. No
Okay.
evidence of this.
Okay, so
And then I went on to say, in
hold on.
all
You're being, can
fields,
you just be a little
I'm
bit
not
more
done yet.
polite?
I'm not done yet. In
So
all
Nyklot, please
fields
let her finish.
related to the brain, neurology, psychology, philosophy of mind, cognitive science, every single one of these fields concludes that intentionality is a part of the brain that we can damage and destroy and control and manipulate, such as Phineas Gage, who had the rod shot through his brain and lost the ability to do impulse control and intentionality. There is no evidence that it has no spatio-temporal magic qualities. In order to provide evidence, you would need to show there is another kind of ontology outside of physical reality, which you haven't done. You just said, oh, it can't be physical. Ooh, not evidence. You would need to provide this new ontology and then provide novel testable predictions this new ontology makes, and then show intentionality is somehow tied to this new ontology. None of this have you provided. All you did is say intentionality is outside of space-time, like magic leprechauns.
Not what I said.
Okay.
I
Pretty much
mean,
exactly what you said,
no, you're
actually.
caricaturing my argument. First of all, to even have testable predictions, you would understand you need to have a consciousness that perceives reality, correct?
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Well,
great.
not really.
So-
Well, no, but sort of.
Okay,
But
so yes or no?
granted
Do
for
you
the sake
need
of
a
argument.
consciousness? Do you need a consciousness to perceive reality, to even have science in the first place? Do you need a human
No.
observer that has a conscious agent?
No,
That
that's just
okay,
stupid.
so you're telling me that someone can have knowledge without having consciousness?
We have computers that can do tests and do science on their own with no consciousness. That's a thing. We've already discovered that. It's not
Does
really
a person
relevant.
have to know the computer and has to perceive the
No,
computer and be aware of
no,
it? So you're
no.
basically saying that you can have
What does this have to do with
knowledge
the
with
argument?
it has to do with the argument because the starting point for me is consciousness. So do you okay, because and here's why the
Things can exist
hypocrisy.
without
Hold on,
consciousness.
I didn't interrupt you. Stop. So the idea is this: even you in your debate with Godless Girl, when asked what your starting point
What,
was,
that has
you said
nothing to do with
no,
this
it does.
topic.
It's relevant because you said I think, therefore I am. So you were starting with consciousness as an absolute
Oh my
certainty of
God.
knowledge. Were you doing that? Yes or no?
Let's go back to the topic now. So
Okay, no, we are
I
going to go.
brought up,
So are you going
no,
to
we're
deny
not going to talk
consciousness?
about
Are you going to deny
another
consciousness?
debate.
Because it shows you're
Oh,
inconsistent.
stop
It just shows
talking,
you're
stop
throwing shit out
talking,
there and
stop
not dealing with
talking,
anything.
stop
No,
talking,
no, 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 I'm saying,
stop
do you
talking,
deny
stop
consciousness as a starting point
talking,
of knowledge?
stop
Yes or no?
talking. So the argument I
Okay, I'm
said
not
was,
going to let you
you've
frame control this stuff. Do you deny
I've
consciousness
muted you on
as a
my end.
starting
I
point
can
of
no
knowledge?
longer hear what you're saying.
I mean,
You
I
have
don't
been
know why.
muted.
Okay,
So
so
now
I'm going
my
to say
audience
this
can hear
guy.
what I'm saying.
Okay, I
No one
can
can hear
make.
what you're saying.
Okay, you can
Oh,
do this.
The
I mean,
argument that
what is the point
Nyklot
of me
made was
having
that
this? Okay, he's going to do this stuff.
intentionality is
I don't.
outside
What's
of
the point of
space
this?
time.
People are going to
This
kind of
is
record this.
just
That's
inanely
not what
stupid.
I'm
Now, I
saying.
said
I'm going to
provide
keep
evidence of
talking.
this.
He's gonna.
All he's
Okay,
done is try
he
to
hasn't
like
dealt with my argument is all.
bring up
I'm
other
going to tell
debates
you
and
this.
topics about
He
consciousness. Like, okay,
hasn't dealt with
what
my
is the
argument at all.
evidence
Okay,
that
why am I bothered dealing with
intentionality
this?
is
I'm just going to
outside of
keep
space
talking
time?
over you, TJump. You can mute me on your end.
All right, you're unmuted.
Okay. Yeah,
Go
look,
ahead.
you can be a coward in this. Which specific premise do you disagree with? One, two, three, or
Okay, I
four.
muted
Tell
you
me.
again. I'm going to mute you
Okay,
anytime
no,
until you
no,
answer
no,
my
no. I
question
don't.
because all I
I
really care
have an
about is the answers
argument.
to
Why
my
aren't you
question.
dealing with my argument?
What is your
Obviously, my
evidence
argument.
that
Okay, I'm going to mute you.
intentionality is
Okay, I'm
outside
going
of
to turn
space
it
time?
down.
Go ahead.
Okay, can moderators control this? If this is a crossfire, is this just going to be T-Jump engaging in a monologue, or is he going to actually basically? I have
I'm
to answer
asking
his
you a question
questions.
and I'm
He
waiting for
doesn't
the answer.
answer
Come on,
mine.
go,
I
go, go.
specifically said this here. I have an argument.
Last
He
chance.
has not
Last chance.
refuted any premise. The premises have been
5,
hit by the threshold of sufficiency
4,
through eidetic
3,
necessity. Every single
2.
premise is either apodictically certain or a form. Okay, the coward leaves. Can we get this? He has not dealt at all with my. Can anybody see this? He basically goes off into some sort of, kind of talking points. I presented an argument. In this specific argument, I gave 4 premises and a conclusion. I showed how the logic is valid, and I've justified each premise as eidetically necessary. And then he did not deal with any specific premise at all. Did anybody go in here? Did TJump deal with any premise of mine? Yes, or can people say, no, he didn't? Did anybody hear TJump deal with any premise or just go on his talking points about neuroscience, blah, 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 some sort of shotgunning, gish galloping crap? Can someone bring this up? Does someone else want to take this? I hope, who here is recording this? Yazan, are you recording this? I'd like this to be recorded so I can sit there and I can present my argument. He can actually come back and deal with my argument, but he refuses to deal with my argument. Who here is just anybody recording this? Can someone be brought up here who might be recording this? Bring up Philosophy King or someone else. Can someone bring someone up? Hello? Okay, who's moderating this is doing a terrible job. Get up here so we can actually bring people up. Why am I going to be talking? I mean, are we going to have to go to another server? This is a really terrible job of moderating. I don't know. Do we want to go to another one? I mean, this was, yeah, I mean, look, I don't know who did this. I don't know if Joester's there or someone wants to have this. We can go into a room here and we can discuss this and we can have this. I don't know who's recording this. You're recording. Cool. Do we want to go into a room here and I can talk and people can comment? Because I just don't want to engage in a monologue here. I want to proceed to go to this. Can we go? Can we go to this? We're going to go here. I'm going to open up a room and I want to go to discussion. We're going to go to discussion. Everyone go to discussion.